So the very interesting statistic, again, I'm giving you some statistic moments at the moment, but the average age for an American female to go through menopause is around 51, depending on rate. It's race dependent. So if you're from Southeast Asia, it tends to be slightly younger. If you're from the Mediterranean countries and what I call the latitude countries, so Japan, North Korea, Northern China, Georgia in Asia, and in Europe, sorry, in part of the former Russia, former Soviet Union, Greece, Italy, Spain, those people that live on that latitude tend to have much later menopause rates at around about 52. But on average, it's about 50, 51 years old across the board. If you go through menopause at 56, 5 years later, you will live an extra 11 years of life, or 13% more life. That's a huge amount.
Huge.
But why? What's the benefit? There's only 5 species that go through menopause. The other 4, by the way, are all marine mammals, whales or dolphins, and narwhals. Narwhals are whales. Killer whales, which are dolphins, and porpoises. Why do humans do it? No primates do, no monkeys do, none of that stuff. Again, that's a story totally in on itself, and you would have to do another hour just to discuss that. So let's not go into it. We'll just accept it as fact. But the fact is that if you can delay it, a woman lives longer. Now, the reason is, think about it. What makes us a man or a woman? We start off as little babies, and we got little, little blobs of fat with 30% fat, with little bits are slightly different, and we differentiate. And men, we get deep voices, muscles, chest hair, etc. Balls drop, bang, and so the idea is we go and grab what we want, and we can use physical violence. And interestingly, we have much more smaller frontal lobes than women until we have children, which is very interesting. Yeah. The second thing is that women, they develop hips, breasts, hair, so on and so forth. And that way they can, and the idea is we spread our genetics between each other, meiotic reproduction, sexual reproduction. So the things that we classify as attractive are all related to sexual reproduction. Now, you might prefer blondes or brunettes or tall or short or, whatever, but we all agree what's healthy. We all agree that's healthy. You look at someone and they don't look right. Ooh, they just look a bit weird. And if you're discussing whether you like this person or not, you're discussing minutiae, and that's preferences of what you find attractive. But it's all very similar things, right? So the things that make us healthy are our sexual functions, our endocrine system, right? So would it not make sense that rather than trying to, as you age, prop up your breasts or give yourself less brain fog or thicken your hair with some finasteride, would it not make more sense to actually keep your body in that loop of being sexually functioning and reproductive? And of course, then we get the question is, well, hold on a minute, Zach, or hold on a minute, Debs, hold on a minute, Jules. How do you make this work? How do you keep this into a what about telomeres? What about aging? What about this? What about that? Well, okay, let's take an assumption here that you live to 125 years old before your telomeres shut down. So I don't know about you, and I don't actually know how old you are, but we don't have to say it on camera. Don't worry, you can find
42. I'm good.
40. You're right. 42. Okay, you're 42. Okay, so that's a good age, 42. I remember that. I remember that one years ago. so basically, 42 is like, for instance, I'd like to see what you're like when you're 82, right? Now, if you're the same as you are now when you're 82, wouldn't you be happy about that?
Oh, right. Hell yeah.
Yeah. So everyone's talking about let's lengthen our telomeres. Let's do this. Let's do that. Right. In actual fact, your body is like, think of telomeres as like a leasehold or a right. You have the right to the land for 125 years, and your body's the building. Well, I don't know about you, but I've never known a building that needs no maintenance for 125 years. Right. So the idea being is, let's look at before you start to age. Now, let's go back to those points of the endocrine system. The endocrine system is one of the fundamental systems of the body that creates, functions and regulates metabolism, growth and development, sexual function and reproduction, heart rate, blood pressure, body temperature, and sleeping and waking cycles, as well as your appetite. So the last five that I mentioned are easily maintained by diet, exercise, being sensible, not drinking too much tequila on a Friday night, the usual. Growth and development, well, you're already fully grown. All right. Let's just accept who you are. You're a white guy of Polish descent. You're not going to suddenly become Ethiopian, and it's just not going to happen. Just accept it. That's just what you are. Okay, that's
Very accepting of that.
right. That's just how it is. Right. Just take that. But metabolism and sexual function and reproduction are are not controlled by diet and exercise. Now, when do you think your metabolism slows down? At what age?
Oh, I remember this was a trick one that you had brought up in your presentation. It was late. It was like 80s, right?
Yeah, exactly. In your
I was
80s.
astonished when I heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's much later. And so because of that, reason why your metabolism slows down is because your lifestyle changes. You hit
Mhm.
30, you're making some cash, you get lazy. You find a girlfriend, suddenly, instead of you going down the stairs, walking to work, you can afford to take a cab or an Uber or a driver. So you get lazy. You take the elevator because it goes straight into your condo that you've made money on and you bought, right? Rather than going up those stairs that you used to do, right?
Yeah.
And again, let's
Remember
go
those.
back to the blue zones, right? These people that live in Crete, in Icaria, in Sardinia, in Costa Rica, in Loma Linda, Okinawa, whatever. All of these people, what do? They live in hilly areas. They walk up
Mhm.
the stairs. They farm their gardens. They do the things that we want for convenience. So that's where your metabolism slows down because what happens is, and I hate to admit it, I just did a body DEXA scan the other day,
Mm.
and there's pretty much the same weight as I was and similar size to what I was when I was 20, 21,
Mm.
21, 22. I can still wear the same. In fact, I can still wear the same pants, but I had been sick recently. I was very ill, and I was hospitalized for a little bit. I
Mm.
recovered, but my muscles had gone away. So although we used to call it in the martial arts game, porno fit. You're fit enough for a porno, but you're not fit enough for the Olympics, right? I don't know whether we should quote that one, but in
I
other
have
words,
not heard of that one, but makes
any,
sense.
anyone who's done Olympic Taekwondo or something like that, or some kind of thing like judo, that they'll say that term. But it's like interesting that you look at it, um, and you'll see that you look fit, but you're not truly fit. So think of it in real terms. Your muscles go from fillet steak to ribeye. So it's the
Mm.
same size, but it's striated with fat, and fat has no metabolic basal rate. It's a storage of energy. It is not a consumer of energy. And so therefore, your metabolism, you're saying, wait a minute, I look the same. How come I cannot eat the same? Because it's all happening under the hood. Everything's happening under the hood. That's metabolism. So again, that is maintained by lifestyle and exercise and so on and so forth. But the last one that you cannot control fully with diet and exercise is sexual function and reproduction. You
Mm.
can mitigate it, but whether you like to admit it or not, as we age, our whether it's for women or men, or testosterone and estrogen levels do decrease. You do lower it. There are ways to delay it, but at some point, usually around, well, it can only happen from as early as your late 30s, but usually it's in your mid 40s. After that point, you have to start ways of reigniting your system that does not require, that you can't just do by just doing certain types of squat lunges to increase the muscles in your thighs, and therefore release the serotonin and the estrogen and testosterone hormones through your pelvic girdle, right?
Right.
That it just only has certain limitations. And at that point, that's where you have to control that system and keep it spinning. So you're 40 years old, you're about to hit middle age, well, you're in middle age, but you're about to hit like significant middle age, which is where you are right now. And it's a very interesting point. So you're just at that point where you know who you are, you're happy with who you are, you're comfortable with who you are, you've got skills, you've got knowledge, you've got experience, you've had wins, you've had losses. Great. You know, you're much more at peace with who you are. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then just at that moment, you're like, holy shit, everything's falling apart. What the fuck, man?
Well, isn't that life, right? Right when you feel like you got to figure it out, it's like,
Right.
no, you don't.
Right. So what we are doing is we're saying, why don't we give you an extra 20 years?
Mm.
So where you are right now, I'm not saying I can recommend you drinking bottles of tequila daily, but again, where you are right now, we can give you an extra 15 to 20 years of the vitality and the health that you have. And that is, wait a minute, if the body, now let's go back to the genetic side. When you look at the genetic side, there are some things in our gene makeup, and which show that we age more quickly than we should do. There's a couple of bits in the genome, and without sort of stating my credentials, if you want, you can talk about those later. But in terms of like, there are some things that we shouldn't die when we die. We shouldn't fall apart when we fall apart, especially women. Especially women. So unlike men, it's the one time actually I believe that women are less complicated than men. It's the one time, which is that basically there is menopause. It's a very clear breakdown of after that point, women age far more quickly because the things that keep their bones dense so they can carry children, or their skin supple so that they don't get injured and get infections whilst they're carrying children, or keeps their frontal cortex lobes far more fluid so they can communicate better. Now, communication and comprehension are not the same thing. When you talk about communication, really we should talk about comprehension. Do you understand what I'm saying? Not can you hear what I'm saying?
Right.
It's a
big difference.
Big difference. But women are definitely more inclined to talk more. You know, when you get a bunch of guys, they sit around, yeah, mate, yeah, sure, bang. But when it's women, they talk a lot more. Now,
Sure.
that is why they're generally in the same way that men are stronger. I mean, there's even if you take a top level athlete, so a prime example with running is Flojo ran 110.49, right? A good club runner, male club runner, will win that. Will smash that record, right? But he's never going to win the Olympics. In the same way, women are far better at interaction, language, communication, interaction than men are. We have to learn it a lot later because our frontal cortex is lower. So again, we're not equal, we're complementary. And that's what makes us stronger, and it gives us our strength. So looking at those points, the things that make a woman, after menopause, they start to degrade at a more rapid rate. Now, again, if we can keep menopause from happening, it works.